He had everything: money, power, a home in the sky where the city looked small and distant. And still, something was missing. Victor Hale sat alone at a long dining table that could seat 14 people. This morning, like every morning, it held only one. His coffee steamed quietly beside a stack of neatly arranged papers. He didn't touch it yet. He never rushed anything. His suit was perfect, not a wrinkle, not a mistake. His silver hair was cut short, clean, controlled. His hands rested flat on the table, still as stone. Everything about him said one thing: control. Outside, the city was already alive, cars moving, people rushing, buildings catching the early light. Buildings he had built, towers of glass, bridges of steel, hospitals, offices, whole streets that existed because of him. If you stood anywhere in that city and turned slowly, you would see his work. Victor Hale had built an empire, and he trusted no one inside it, not anymore. He had learned that lesson slowly, quietly, over years. Smiles meant nothing. Kindness meant nothing. Every handshake came with a hidden question. What can I get from you? He had tested that belief again and again. Every time he was right, so he stopped looking for anything else. He worked, he built, he expanded, and he kept his distance, always. That morning, he flipped through a contract worth nearly $40 million, a government road project. Important, profitable, predictable, safe. Then something small pulled his attention away. At the far end of the room near the window, a woman moved quietly, Maya Collins. She had been working in his house for almost 6 years. 6 years, and he knew nothing about her. She polished the wooden cabinet with slow, steady hands, no wasted movement, no noise. Her uniform was neat, her hair pulled back tightly, her face calm, almost unreadable. She moved like someone who had learned how to disappear without leaving the room. The house was always perfect because of her. The floors, the windows, the air itself felt ordered. His coffee was always ready before he asked. His clothes always arranged in the exact way he preferred. The flowers on the table changed every Monday morning without fail. Everything just worked. And yet, something about her felt wrong. Too quiet, too careful. Victor leaned back slightly in his chair, watching her without speaking. She didn't notice. She never did. 6 years, and she had never once mentioned her life outside this house. No stories, no complaints, no friends, nothing. She arrived in the morning, worked all day, left in the evening, every single day, like a clock. Victor's eyes narrowed slightly. What does she think about? The thought came suddenly. What does she go home to? He looked down at the contract again, tried to focus. The numbers blurred for a moment, then cleared, then blurred again. He tapped the paper once, annoyed. Why matter? It doesn't. She's an employee, that's all. He turned a page, forced his attention back, but the thought stayed, quiet, persistent, like a small crack in glass. And cracks always spread. The doubt did not leave. It stayed, quiet, patient, like something waiting. Victor tried to ignore it. He buried himself in work, in meetings, in numbers that always made sense. Numbers didn't hide things. Numbers didn't lie. People did. That afternoon, he sat across from Howard Blake in the company break room. The coffee machine hummed softly in the corner. Papers were spread across the table, but neither man was really looking at them. Howard poured himself a cup of coffee, slow and relaxed. He always looked relaxed. That was part of his charm. You ever think about the people in your house? Howard said casually, like he was talking about the weather. Victor didn't answer. Howard took a sip. Your staff. The quiet ones. Still nothing. Howard smiled slightly. 6 years, right? That woman of yours. The housekeeper. Victor's eyes lifted just a little. I'm just saying, Howard continued, shrugging. The quiet ones, they're the ones you should watch. A pause. They don't talk. They don't complain. They don't share. He leaned back. That usually means they're hiding something. Victor said nothing. His face didn't change, but the words landed, soft, heavy. Howard waved a hand lightly. I'm not accusing anyone, just experience. He smiled again. You build long enough, you learn to read people. The conversation moved on. Contracts, deadlines, numbers. But Victor didn't hear much after that. The words stayed, the quiet ones. That evening, the mansion felt different, too still. Victor stood in the hallway near the kitchen, his hands behind his back, listening. The soft sounds of movement, a drawer closing.
Water running.
Maya stepped into view a moment later. Her workday was finished. As always, she moved with quiet efficiency. She wiped her hands, folded her apron neatly, and placed it on the chair. No rush, no hesitation. Then she reached for her bag, a worn brown handbag, old, soft at the edges. For a brief second, she pressed it shut, quickly, too quickly, like someone closing something before it could be seen. Victor's eyes sharpened. Maya looked up. Their eyes met, just for a moment. Then she smiled. That same polite, controlled smile he had seen every day for 6 years. "Good evening, sir," she said calmly, her voice steady, almost too steady. "Good evening," Victor replied. She nodded once, turned, walked toward the door, no hesitation. The door opened, closed, gone. Victor didn't move. The house fell silent again. He could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. The distant sound of traffic far below the building. Nothing else. He walked slowly to the window and looked out at the city lights beginning to glow in the evening haze.
What was in that bag?
The thought came sharp this time, clear, not a question anymore, a need. He folded his arms, his jaw tightening slightly. Every evening, the same thing. She leaves quickly, always quickly, rain or shine. He remembered it now. The driver offering her a ride more than once, holding an umbrella, smiling. She always refused, always. And then she walked. Fast, focused, like someone late for something important, or someone protecting something. Victor's reflection stared back at him in the glass, cold, controlled. But his eyes restless. The doubt had grown. Not loud, not dramatic, just there, like a crack that had finally reached the other side. He turned away from the window, walked back into the silent room. Enough. He had built an empire by not ignoring small things. He would not start now. If there was something hidden, he would find it. The decision was made the next morning. No delay, no hesitation. Victor Hale did not sit with uncertainty. He acted. "Daniel," he said without looking up from his desk. The door opened almost instantly. Daniel Reed stepped in, tablet in hand, pen tucked behind his ear out of habit. "Yes, sir. I need an address." A pause, short, careful. "Whose address, sir?" Victor's eyes stayed on the papers. "Maya Collins." Daniel blinked once. "The housekeeper?" Victor lifted his gaze, just slightly. "Is there another Maya in this building?" "No, sir." Daniel straightened, fingers already moving across the screen. "I'll have it shortly. 10 minutes. It took 8. Daniel returned and placed a small printed card on the desk. Clean, precise. Victor picked it up, read it once, then again. The location sat far from his world, far from glass towers, far from clean streets, a place he had passed many times without ever stopping. "Shall I arrange the car, sir?" Daniel asked. Victor turned the card between his fingers, thought for half a second.
Yes.
A pause this afternoon. Daniel nodded, already stepping back. And Daniel. He stopped.
"Sir?"
"Do not mention this to anyone." A small nod, serious now. "Of course, sir." The afternoon moved slowly, too slowly. Victor signed documents he barely read, sat through meetings he barely heard, ate a meal he did not taste. At 3 in the afternoon, he stood up. Enough. The car was waiting downstairs, dark, silent, windows tinted. Samuel Brooks stood by the door, already holding it open. Victor got in without a word. He handed him the card. Samuel glanced at it, then at the mirror, then back at the road. No questions. The car moved. At first, nothing changed. Tall buildings, clean glass, wide streets. Then slowly, the city shifted. The towers disappeared. The roads narrowed. The colors faded. Paint peeled from walls. Yellow, green, pink, all tired now. Electric wires hung overhead in tangled lines like dark threads pulled too tight. Children played football in an open space between houses, stones marking the goalposts. Their laughter echoed across the street. A woman sat outside her door, braiding another woman's hair. They talked, laughed. A man pushed a cart full of bottles, calling out loudly as he passed. Victor watched everything through the glass, silent, still. He had not been here in how long? 30 years, maybe more. He shifted slightly in his seat. A memory tried to rise. A smaller house, a simpler life. He pushed it down. Samuel slowed the car, turned into a narrow side street. Should be just ahead, sir, he said quietly. Victor leaned forward just a little. Then he saw it, the house. Small, simple, one floor, painted a pale blue that had faded unevenly under years of sun. The yard was swept clean, not perfect, but cared for. Near the door sat a clay pot, orange flowers, bright, alive. Victor stared at them for a long moment. He had expected something else, something messy, something suspicious, something that explained the unease growing inside him. But this was just a house, quiet, clean. Still, Samuel stopped the car, engine idling softly. Victor did not move at first. He looked again, at the walls, at the flowers, at the narrow path leading to the door. What am I expecting? The thought came, sharp and sudden. He didn't answer it. Instead, he opened the door. The air hit him immediately, warm, heavy. It smelled like cooking, onions, spices, something rich drifting from somewhere nearby. A radio played faintly in the distance. Two boys sitting across the street looked up, their eyes wide, curious. Victor straightened his jacket, took a step forward, then another, each step slower than the one before. Not fear, something else, something unfamiliar. He reached the door, raised his hand, and knocked. The door opened, slowly, just enough at first, then wider, and there she was. Maya Collins stood in the doorway, her hand still gripping the edge of the door. For a single second, she froze. Her eyes widened, her breath caught. No control, no mask.
Just shock.
Victor had never seen that face before. Not in 6 years. Then it was gone, just like that. Her shoulders straightened, her expression settled. Calm returned. Sir, she said quietly. Her voice steady, but not completely. I wasn't expecting you. No, Victor replied. You weren't. Silence fell between them, strange, tight, the kind that stretches longer than it should. Then, a voice. Small, soft, from inside the house. Mama, who is it? Victor didn't move. Maya turned her head slightly toward the sound. Something shifted in her face again. Not fear, something deeper. Careful, protective. Just a moment, she called back gently. Her voice had changed. Softer now, warmer. She looked back at Victor. Would you like to come in? She asked. Polite words. But underneath a hesitation, a question she could not ask out loud. Victor nodded once. Yes. Thank you. He stepped inside. The first thing he noticed was the air, clean. Not the sharp chemical clean of a place prepared for guests. Something else. Lived in, cared for. Every surface was wiped, the floor smooth. A folded cloth rested at the edge of the small kitchen counter, placed with exact precision. 2 cups sat on a shelf, handles turned the same direction. Victor's eyes moved slowly across the room.
Of course.
Of course it looks like this. The house was small. He could see almost everything from where he stood. A sitting room with 3 mismatched chairs, a low table, a kitchen barely large enough for 2 people, a short hallway leading deeper inside. On the wall, one thing, a wooden cross, old, worn smooth by time, simple, nothing like his world. And yet there was something here his world did not have. He felt it. Couldn't name it. Not yet. Footsteps. Light. Quick. 2 children appeared at the end of the hallway. They stopped immediately when they saw him. The boy stepped forward first. Around 10 years old. Bright eyes. Open face. No hiding. No caution. Just curiosity. He looked Victor up and down without apology. The suit. The shoes. The posture. In his hands he held a small toy car, 1 wheel missing. A tiny screwdriver tucked behind his ear. This is Eli, Maya said. Her voice changed again. Softer, warmer.
My son.
Eli nodded seriously. Good afternoon, he said like a small man at a meeting. Victor blinked once. Good afternoon, he replied. Then he looked at the girl. She stood slightly behind her brother. Smaller, thinner, her eyes careful, watching. She held a notebook tightly against her chest, both arms wrapped around it. This is Sophie, Maya said. My daughter. Sophie studied him for a long moment, then took 1 small step forward. Are you Mama's boss? She asked. Maya. It's all right, Victor said quietly. He looked at the girl. Yes, I am. Sophie tilted her head slightly, thinking. She says you live in a very big house. I do. Is it bigger than ours? Victor looked around the room again. The chairs, the table, the cross, the air. Yes, he said slowly. A pause. But yours is very nice. Sophie didn't smile immediately. She watched his face. Checking, measuring. Then something in her seemed to settle. She lowered her arms and held out the notebook. I draw buildings, she said. Do you want to see? Victor hesitated for half a second, then took it, opened it, page after page, buildings, tall towers, houses, bridges, schools, drawn in colored pencil, lines uneven, proportions imperfect. But there was thought in them, meaning. Big windows so the sun comes in, steps wide enough for everyone, garden on the roof. Victor turned the pages slowly, carefully. Something moved inside him, small, quiet, unexpected. I want to be an architect, Sophie said. He looked up. I want to build houses for people who don't have nice ones. The room went still. Victor closed the notebook gently, looked at her. You're very talented, he said. No politeness.
Just truth.
Sophie smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Victor sat down slowly. The chair beneath him creaked just a little. Old wood, used, real. Maya had gestured for him to sit without saying much. Now she took the seat across from him, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Eli dropped to the floor again, already focused on his broken toy car. The small screwdriver moved carefully in his fingers, his brow tight with concentration. Sophie returned to her corner chair, her notebook back in her arms, though her eyes still drifted toward Victor every few seconds. The room settled, quiet, but not empty. There was sound here, soft breathing, small movements, the faint hum of life continuing. Victor leaned back slightly and let his eyes move again. The details were everywhere. The table was worn at the edges, smoothed by years of hands resting there. The chairs didn't match, but they were clean, cared for. A folded cloth sat perfectly at the corner of the kitchen counter. The cups aligned, the floor swept. Nothing expensive, everything intentional. He thought of his own home. The long cream sofa no one sat on, the piano no one touched, the flowers replaced every Monday, admired by no one. Silence, perfect, expensive, empty. His jaw tightened slightly. Then a sound, soft, slow, from down the hallway. Victor's eyes shifted. There was a door, slightly open, just enough. Through the narrow gap, a bed, a thin blanket, and the shape of someone lying very still. Victor leaned forward just a fraction. What is that room? He asked quietly. Maya's eyes moved to the door instantly. Something changed in her face again. A deeper shift this time, not something she could hide. My mother, she said softly. Victor nodded once. Is she unwell? A pause. Maya didn't answer immediately. Not avoidance, decision. She has Alzheimer's, she said finally. The words settled heavily in the air. 3 years now. Victor said nothing. Maya continued, her voice calm, practiced. Some days are better. She glanced toward the door again. Some days she knows who I am. A faint smile touched her lips. She remembers the children. She laughs. She tells stories about when she was young. The smile faded, and some days she didn't finish. She didn't need to. Victor's gaze drifted back to the door. Eli had stopped moving. The screwdriver rested loosely in his hand now. His eyes were lowered, quiet. Sophie had shifted closer to her mother without thinking, pressing lightly against her side. Maya's arm came around her automatically. No thought, no hesitation, just habit. Victor watched that small movement, and something inside him tightened. He cleared his throat slightly. May I see her? The words felt unfamiliar as they left his mouth. Maya looked at him, careful, measuring. She may not recognize you, she said. That's all right. Another pause. Then she nodded. Come, she stood, walked toward the hallway. Victor followed. The room was small, simple. A single bed, a wooden chair, a narrow table with a plastic cup of water. Light entered through a small window above the bed, falling softly across the blanket. Everything here was quiet, still, peaceful in a way that felt fragile. On the bed lay an elderly woman, thin, small, her white hair spread softly across the pillow, her face lined deeply with time. But even in stillness, there was warmth there, something gentle. Maya moved to her side, sat carefully on the edge of the bed. She dipped the cloth into the water and pressed it lightly against her mother's forehead. Slow, careful, like touching something that might break. Mama, she said softly, you have a visitor. The woman's eyes opened, slowly, unfocused at first. Then searching, they found Maya's face. A small smile appeared. There you are, she whispered, her voice thin but warm. I was looking for you. I'm here, Maya said gently. Victor stood in the doorway, still, watching. The woman's eyes shifted, found him. She looked at him for a long moment, not suspicious, not afraid, just curious. Who is this? She asked softly. Maya glanced at Victor. This is a friend, she said. His name is Victor. The woman studied him again, longer this time. Then she smiled. You have a serious face, she said. Victor blinked. The words landed unexpectedly. I've been told that before, he replied quietly. She nodded slowly, as if confirming something she already knew. Then she lifted her hand weakly, gesturing toward the chair. Sit, she said. A serious face means a heavy heart. Victor hesitated, just for a second. Then he stepped forward. Victor sat down, slowly, carefully. The wooden chair felt harder than he expected. He didn't move after that. Grace Collins watched him with quiet focus. Her eyes were pale, slightly unfocused, but not empty. There was something there, something clear, something that saw more than it should. You look like a man who thinks too much, she said softly. Victor let out a small breath. Not quite a laugh, I suppose I do. Behind him, he heard a small sound. A quick breath cut short Eli, trying not to laugh. Grace didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did, and simply didn't care. She shifted slightly on the bed, her fingers brushing the blanket. I used to know a man like that, she continued, always thinking, always planning. A pause. He missed a lot of things. The room went very still. Victor didn't answer. Maya sat beside her mother, her hand resting gently over Grace's. Her eyes moved between them.
Quiet, watchful.
Grace's gaze drifted for a moment, then came back. Where are you from? She asked suddenly. Victor hesitated. Around here, he said. She tilted her head slightly. No, she murmured. Not the place, the feeling. Victor frowned just a little. I don't understand. Grace smiled faintly. That's all right. Most people don't. Silence again, but not uncomfortable, not sharp like before. Something softer now. Grace began to speak again, not to ask questions, just to talk. About a garden. A long time ago, she said, her voice drifting, I had tomatoes and peppers and a lemon tree. Her eyes softened. The lemons were the best. So bright, so sour, she smiled. I used to stand there in the morning, just looking at them. Victor listened, at first politely. Then something shifted. She spoke about a river, cold water, children laughing, catching fish with their hands. She spoke about a song her mother used to sing, quiet, slow, the kind of song that stays in the air long after the voices is gone. Victor didn't interrupt, didn't move. Time stretched. He wasn't sure when it happened, when the listening stopped being polite and became something else, something real. The room smelled faintly of soap and warm air. The light from the window rested gently across the bed. Maya's hand never left her mother's. Not once. Victor noticed that. He noticed everything now. The way Maya leaned closer when Grace's voice grew weaker. The way she adjusted the blanket without looking. The way she waited. Always waited. Like she had learned that waiting mattered. A memory slipped in, sudden, sharp. His mother's voice, not words, just the sound of it. Soft, patient. He hadn't heard it in years. Not since the last call. I'll call you back this weekend, Mama. He could hear himself saying it, clear as if it was happening again. I promise. He had meant it. At the time, there had always been something more important. A meeting, a deal, a flight, something. There was always something. Grace's voice faded, mid-sentence. One moment she was speaking, the next she was asleep. Just like that, peaceful. A small smile still resting on her face. Victor blinked. Maya moved gently, carefully. She lifted her mother's hand and placed it back on the blanket, smoothed it once, then again, slow, precise, like finishing something important. Victor stared at the floor, didn't move, didn't speak. Something inside him had shifted, not broken, not yet, but moved. Maya stood up quietly, walked to the door, held it open. She didn't rush him, didn't speak. She just waited. Victor remained seated for a moment longer. Then he stood, slowly. He walked past her, back into the small living room. The air felt different now. He couldn't explain why. He just knew it wasn't the same anymore. They sat in silence. Not the cold kind, not the empty kind Victor knew so well. This one had weight. Maya placed 2 cups of tea on the table. Plain cups, no matching set. Steam rose slowly, curling into the quiet air. Victor stared at his cup for a moment before touching it. He wasn't a man who drank tea like this, simple, warm, without ceremony. He picked it up anyway, took a sip. Ginger, mild, unexpected. It settled in his chest in a way he didn't understand. "How long?" he asked. Maya looked at him. He didn't lift his eyes. "How long has she been like that?" A small pause. "The forgetting started about 4 years ago," she said softly. Victor nodded once. Small things at first. Keys, names, places. Maya's fingers tightened slightly around her cup. "We thought it was just age." Her voice lowered. "Then one day, she called me by my aunt's name, a breath. My aunt died before I was born." The room felt smaller suddenly. Victor said nothing. "The diagnosis came 3 years ago," Maya continued. "The doctor explained everything, very carefully." She gave a faint smile. "But there's no way to explain it, really." Victor looked up now.
What do you mean?
Maya met his gaze. "You can understand it with your mind and still not be ready for it." A pause. "What does it ask of you?" he asked quietly. Maya didn't answer right away. Outside, Eli's voice echoed faintly as he kicked something against the wall, a steady rhythm, over and over. She listened to it for a moment. Then she spoke, everything. The word landed softly, but it didn't feel soft. "It doesn't ask all at once," she continued. "That would be easier." Her eyes lowered to her hands. "It asks a little more each week." A pause, a little more patience, a little more time. Her fingers tightened. "A little more of yourself." Victor leaned back slightly. "And you give it?" Maya nodded. "Because she's my mother." Simple, clear, no hesitation. Because who she is still there. Her voice softened. "On the good days, you see her. A small smile. On the bad days, you remember the good ones." Silence again. Victor exhaled slowly. "That's why you leave so quickly," he said. Not a question. Maya nodded. "The children come home at 4. She glanced toward the hallway. "My mother needs her medication at 5. Her voice remained calm. "Her evening wash is at 5:30. A pause. "If I'm not here, she didn't finish." She didn't need to. Victor understood. "There's no one else?" "I have a neighbor," Maya said, Mrs. Cole. "She checks in during the day." A faint smile returned. "She's 70. Moves slowly." The smile grew just a little. "But she has more energy than most people." Then it faded. "The evenings are mine." A pause. "The nights, too." Victor set his cup down carefully. He looked around the room again. The chairs, the table. Sophie in the corner, drawing quietly, pretending not to listen. Everything here connected. Everything here mattered. His mind drifted to his own house. The silence, the space, the distance. Then further back, to a smaller house, a different life, his mother, alone, waiting. He had arranged everything for her. Nurses, medication, bills, everything money could solve. Except the one thing that mattered, he hadn't been there. He had visited 4 times that year. 4 times, each visit short, each visit rushed. He remembered checking his watch.
More than once.
Victor swallowed slowly. The memory sat heavy in his chest.
Mr. Hale?
He looked up. Maya was watching him, carefully. "Are you all right?" 4 simple words, but she meant them. He could hear it. Victor opened his mouth. Nothing came out at first. His throat felt tight. Then, very quietly, "I had a mother too." The room went still. Maya didn't speak. She waited. "She died 11 years ago," he continued. His voice was lower now. "I wasn't there." A pause. "Not the way I should have been." His eyes dropped to his hands. "I told myself I was doing enough." Another pause, providing, paying. His fingers tightened slightly. "But I wasn't there." Silence filled the space again. Outside, the steady sound of Eli's game continued. Victor let out a slow breath. "Watching you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Maya understood. She studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke. "You are here now." Simple words, but they landed, heavy, real. Victor nodded once, slowly, like something inside him had just shifted and would never move back. He could not sleep. Not that night. Victor lay on his back, staring at the ceiling of his bedroom. The air was perfect, the temperature exact, the sheets soft enough to forget they were there. Everything was as it should be, and still nothing felt right. He turned on his side, then onto his back again, closed his eyes, opened them. The images came back anyway. Not in order, not clear, fragments. Maya's hand smoothing the blanket, Grace's soft smile, Sophie's notebook pressed against her chest, the wooden cross on the wall, the cup of ginger tea. And beneath all of it, a voice. His mother's voice. "I'll call you back this weekend, Mama." The words echoed in the dark. "I promise." He swallowed. His throat felt dry. He turned his head toward the window. The city lights flickered far below, distant and cold. There was always something more important. Always. A meeting. A deal. A dinner. He had told himself it mattered, that it was necessary, that she would understand. He pushed the blanket aside, sat up. The clock beside the bed read 2 in the morning. He stood, walked out of the room. The mansion was silent, too silent. His footsteps echoed faintly as he moved through the dark hallway. He didn't turn on the lights. Didn't need to. He knew every step, every corner. He reached the sitting room. The long cream sofa stretched across the space untouched, perfect. He sat down, slowly. His hands rested on his knees. Still. The darkness wrapped around him. And this time, he didn't push the thoughts away. He let them come. January, his first visit that year. He had stayed for 3 hours. 3 hours, and most of it spent looking at his phone. His mother had sat across from him, smiling, always smiling. She had made him tea, placed a plate of biscuits between them, asked about his work. He had talked. She had listened, carefully, like it mattered. He had checked his watch twice, maybe 3 times. April. She was thinner, he had noticed. Of course he had noticed. But he said nothing, because saying something would make it real. She had shown him her garden, tomatoes, peppers, a small lemon tree. She had been so proud of that tree. He could still see it, the way she stood beside it, smiling, waiting for his reaction. "Very nice, Mama." That's all he had said. Then his phone rang. He turned away. 20 minutes. She had waited. Just waited. Victor pressed his lips together. His chest tightened. The third visit, the fourth, shorter each time. Quieter. Then the call. A Thursday evening. Cold air outside a restaurant. The nurse's voice. Gentle, careful. He remembered standing there, listening, still, calm, controlled. Then he had gone back inside. Sat down. Finished his dinner.
Because what else was there to do?
That's what he told himself. That's what made sense. At the time. Victor closed his eyes. The memory shifted. Changed. Now he saw it differently. Not logical. Not practical. Just wrong. The room felt smaller. The silence heavier. His chest rose slowly. Fell. Then something broke. Not loud. Not sudden. Just a crack. Deep inside. His breath caught. His hands tightened slightly on his knees. His eyes burned. And then the tears came. Quiet. No sound. No movement. Just tears slipping down his face as he sat in the dark. For his mother, for the calls he didn't return, for the Sundays she had waited, for the lemon tree he had turned his back on, for the man he had been, and the man who had known better but kept going anyway. He stayed there for a long time. Didn't move, didn't stop it, just felt it, finally, after all these years. When it was over, he wiped his face slowly with his sleeve, stood up. The room looked the same. Perfect, silent, empty. But something inside him was not the same anymore. Morning came quietly, too quietly. Victor woke before the alarm. He didn't move at first. Just lay there staring at the ceiling again. The same ceiling, the same room. But something felt different. Not lighter, not easier, just open. Like a window had been left unlocked after years of being shut. He sat up slowly, ran a hand over his face. No tears now, just the memory of them. He got dressed. Same suit, same precision, same routine, but his movements were slower, more aware. When he sat at the dining table, the coffee was already there, as always. Hot, ready, waiting. Victor looked at it for a long moment before touching it, and the door opened quietly. Maya stepped inside. She paused when she saw him. That was new. He was usually gone by now. "Good morning, sir," she said carefully. "Good morning, Maya," he replied. Her eyes flickered slightly at her name. Then she moved toward the kitchen, ready to begin the routine. The same routine, the one she had followed for years, invisible, efficient, silent Maya. She stopped, turned. Victor stood now. Not behind the table, not above her, just there. "Yesterday," he began. The word hung in the air. He stopped, started again. "I want to be honest." Maya said nothing. She watched him, steady. "I did not come to your home with the right intention." A pause. "I was curious." He swallowed. and I handled that curiosity poorly. Silence. He met her eyes. I should have asked you, not followed you. Another pause. Then, quietly, I'm sorry. 3 words. Simple, heavy. They seemed to settle into the room like something unfamiliar. Victor felt it himself. Strange. New. Maya didn't react immediately. She stood very still. Then she nodded once. Thank you, she said softly, her voice calm. But real. I appreciate that. She turned and continued into the kitchen. The sounds began. Water running, a pan placed on the stove. The quiet rhythm of someone who knew exactly what needed to be done. Victor remained standing, listening. Something had shifted. Not loud, not obvious, but real. In the days that followed, he began to notice things. Small things. Things that had always been there, but he had never seen. Maya hummed sometimes. Very quietly. Almost like breathing. A soft sound that filled the silence without breaking it. He noticed how she checked the door lock twice before leaving. The second check, lighter. Almost instinct. He noticed the photograph in her bag. Just a glimpse. Worn edges. Faded color. She had tucked it away quickly when it slipped into view. He didn't ask. But he remembered. He also noticed something else. Himself. He had been moving through this house like everything in it was furniture. Useful. Necessary. But not real. Not alive. He had a staff of 12 people. He didn't know their names. Didn't know their lives. Didn't know their stories. He had never thought to ask. One afternoon, he stopped in the hallway. Daniel. Daniel Reed turned quickly, tablet in hand. Yes, sir? Victor studied him for a moment. A real moment. Not a passing glance.
How's your mother?
Daniel froze just for a second. My mother, sir. You mentioned once she was unwell. Victor's voice remained calm. I'm asking how she is. Daniel blinked, processing. She's better, he said slowly. She had surgery last year. She recovered well. Victor nodded. Good. A pause. I'm glad to hear that. He walked away. Just like that. No further words. But something had changed. Behind him, Daniel remained still for a moment. Then looked down at his tablet. Then back up. A small smile formed. Confused. But real. That same week, Victor picked up his phone, paused, then dialed. Not for business.
Not for himself.
For someone else, he said when the call connected. I need the best specialist for Alzheimer's. A pause. Someone who takes time. He ended the call slowly. Set the phone down. His hand lingered there for a moment. This was new. Different. Not strategy. Not control. Something else. Something he was only beginning to understand. He called the clinic that same afternoon. No delay. No second thoughts. I need an appointment, Victor said calmly, for a patient with Alzheimer's. There was a pause on the other end. Sir, the next available slot is in 4 months. Victor leaned back in his chair. His fingers tapped once against the desk. I understand, he said. A short silence. Please write the name down. Grace Collins. He paused. And tell Dr. Emily Carter that Victor Hale would appreciate it if she could find an earlier opening. Another silence. Longer this time. I will speak to the doctor, sir. Victor ended the call without another word. He sat still for a moment, waiting, not impatient, just present. The phone rang again, less than an hour later. There has been a cancellation, the voice said quickly. Dr. Carter can see the patient next Thursday morning. Victor closed his eyes briefly.
Thank you.
That evening, he waited, not by the window, not in the hallway, at the table. When Maya finished her work and reached for her bag, he spoke. Maya. She paused, turned. Yes, sir? Sit for a moment. A small hesitation. Then she sat, not fully relaxed, perched at the edge of the chair, back straight, hands folded, waiting. Victor remained standing for a second. Then he sat across from her, not at the head of the table, not above, across. I arranged an appointment, he said simply. Maya's eyes flickered.
For your mother.
Silence with a specialist, Dr. Emily Carter. He kept his voice even. She is one of the best in the city. Maya didn't move. Next Thursday morning. A longer pause. Samuel will drive you. Still nothing. It will cost you nothing. The words landed, heavy, clear. Maya looked down at her hands. Then back up. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. I know. Another pause. We've managed, she said, her voice steady. But softer now. It hasn't been easy, but we've managed. Victor nodded once. I've seen how you manage. He held her gaze. That's why I did it. Silence filled the room again, but this time it wasn't tense, it was careful. Maya's fingers tightened slightly together. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Victor replied. A pause. Just tell me if Thursday works. Maya looked down again, thinking, measuring, her world, her routine, everything balanced carefully. Then she spoke. 8:30, she said softly. My mother needs time in the mornings. Victor nodded. 8:30. The next morning came. Victor did not go with them. He thought about it more than once, but he didn't. It wasn't his place. Some things had to remain theirs. But he couldn't focus, not at work, not in meetings. Words blurred, voices faded. He sat through conversations and heard none of them. At noon, his phone vibrated, an unknown number. He knew who it was before he opened it. He read the message slowly. The doctor was kind. A pause. She changed the medication. Another line. She says the good days can come more often now. Victor read it again, then again. There was one more line. My mother laughed twice today. Victor stared at the screen. For a long moment, then he typed, slowly, I'm glad. He stopped. The words felt small, too small. He added one more line. Thank you for telling me. He stared at it, then pressed send. The phone went dark in his hand. Victor leaned back in his chair, looked out at the city. This time he saw it. Not just buildings, not just glass and steel. People, lives, stories. And somewhere in that city, a small house, a woman, 2 children, and an old woman who had laughed twice that day. Victor closed his eyes briefly. Something inside him settled, not complete, not finished, but moving. He started visiting on Saturdays, not every week, not at first, but enough that it became something real. The first time, he stood outside the pale blue house for a moment before knocking. The same orange flowers, but this time he knew what was inside. The door opened quickly. Eli, bright eyes, wide smile. You came back, the boy said. Not surprised, just certain. Victor nodded once. I said I would. Eli stepped aside immediately. Come in. No hesitation, no formality. Victor stepped inside. The air felt familiar now, warm, lived in, real. Sophie sat at the table, her notebook open, pencil moving carefully across the page. She looked up, studied him for a second, then gave a small nod, as if confirming something to herself. Mr. Hale, she said, may I see your drawings again? Victor asked. She didn't smile, not yet, but she turned the notebook toward him. New pages, new ideas, a house with wide steps, a garden on the roof, windows that opened toward the sun. Victor leaned closer. You're thinking about how people live, he said quietly. Sophie nodded. They need space, she replied, not just walls. Victor felt something shift again. Small, but clear. Maya appeared from the kitchen. She paused when she saw him. Not surprised this time, just measuring. You didn't have to come, she said. I wanted to, he replied. Simple. True. She nodded once, then turned back toward the kitchen. The sounds followed, water, movement. That quiet rhythm he was beginning to recognize. Victor walked slowly toward the hallway, Grace's room. The door was open. She was awake, sitting up slightly, supported by pillows. Her eyes moved toward him as he stepped inside. For a moment, nothing. No recognition. Just searching. Then a faint smile. You again, she said softly. Victor sat down beside the bed. Yes, me again. She studied his face. Longer this time. You still look serious, she murmured. Victor almost smiled. Working on that, he said. Grace reached out slowly, her hand light, fragile. She rested it on his. Don't work too hard, she said. You might miss something. Victor didn't answer. He just stayed. They talked, or rather she talked, about the garden again, the lemons, the river, the song. Victor listened, not out of politeness anymore, not out of obligation, but because it mattered. Later, when Grace fell asleep, Victor returned to the living room. Maya sat at the table, 2 cups of tea already waiting. Ginger, always ginger now. He sat across from her. I used to think money solved everything, he said quietly. Maya didn't interrupt. It solves a lot, she replied after a moment, but not everything. Victor nodded slowly. I arranged everything for my mother, he said. A pause. Except being there. Maya looked at him, steady, gentle. That's the part that matters most, she said. Victor looked down at his cup, steam rising. I didn't understand that, he said. You do now, she replied. Simple. but it stayed with him. The children's voices drifted in from outside. Eli shouting, Sophie arguing something with him. Normal, loud, alive. Victor glanced toward the window, then back at Maya. I like to help, he said. She frowned slightly. You already have. He shook his head once. Not like this. A pause. I want to do something that lasts. Maya didn't answer, but she didn't refuse either. Victor leaned back slightly, his mind already moving. Not like before. Not about numbers. Not about profit. Something else. He thought about Sophie's drawings, the wide doors, the open spaces. He thought about Grace's garden, the lemon tree. Still alive in her memory, he thought about Maya, 6 years, quiet, carrying everything alone. And slowly an idea began to form, not fully shaped, not yet, but there, growing, like something planted that finally had room to breathe. It took 3 weeks of quiet movement, phone calls, papers signed, doors opened that did not open for most people. Victor worked the way he always had, focused, precise, but this time, not for profit, not for expansion, for something else, something he could not measure. Daniel, he said one morning. Daniel Reed looked up immediately, pen already in hand. Yes, sir, I need a property. A pause. Single story, quiet street, close enough to the city but not inside the noise. Daniel nodded, already writing. 3 bedrooms, Victor continued. A large front room, a kitchen with space. He stopped, then added softly, and a garden. Daniel glanced up, just for a second.
A garden, sir?
Yes, another pause.
With soil, real soil.
Daniel nodded again, understood. The work moved quickly after that. Victor visited the property himself, walked through every room, touched the walls, stood in the empty space where the garden would be, imagined it, not in numbers, not in cost, in feeling. Here, he said quietly to the landscape designer, tomatoes, peppers, a pause, and a lemon tree. The man nodded, surprised but silent. Inside, Victor arranged everything else. A proper bed for Grace, not just comfortable, safe, equipment recommended by Dr. Emily Carter, lighting that would not hurt tired eyes, space that allowed movement without fear. He added a nurse, part-time, not to replace Maya, to give her space, to breathe. The final piece came last. A simple document, printed, clean. He read it twice before sealing it in the envelope. Then he waited. Saturday morning, he made the call himself. Maya, he said. Her voice came quickly, slightly breathless.
Yes?
I need a favor. A pause. Bring the children to the house this afternoon. Silence. Is everything all right?
Yes.
Another pause. I just want to show you something. Maya didn't answer immediately. Then we'll be there. They arrived at exactly 2 after the afternoon, not early, not late, on time. Maya stepped inside first, not in her uniform. A simple green dress, her hair down. She looked different, younger, more like the person she was when she wasn't working. Eli followed behind her, already looking around with bright curiosity. His toy car in hand. Sophie came last, notebook pressed against her chest. Her eyes moved slowly across the high ceiling, the walls, the space. The ceiling is high, she said quietly. 14 feet, Victor replied. She nodded, storing it away. Victor led them into his study. The room was large, quiet. On the desk, 2 envelopes and a small silver tray with a key. Maya stopped when she saw them, didn't move forward immediately, just looked. Sit, Victor said gently. She hesitated, then sat. Eli climbed into a chair beside her, swinging his legs. Sophie remained still, watching everything. Victor picked up the first envelope, held it out. Maya took it slowly, opened it. Her eyes moved across the page, once. Then again, her breathing changed. Slightly. This is, she began. A property document, Victor said. She looked up at him. With my name on it. Yes. Her hands tightened on the paper. Keep reading, he said softly. She did. A small house, single story, 3 bedrooms, a garden, everything described clearly, everything already hers. Maya went very still. Eli stopped moving. Sophie leaned closer, trying to read. I can't accept this, Maya said finally, her voice low. Controlled. It's too much. Victor nodded once. He had expected that. He moved around the desk, sat across from her. Not above, not distant, close. This is not charity, he said quietly. Maya looked at him.
It is not pity.
A pause. It is not generosity. His voice remained steady. It is attention. The word stayed in the air. For 6 years, he continued, you kept my life running without asking for anything. He met her eyes. I did not see you. A pause. Now I do. Maya's lips pressed together. Her eyes glistened, just slightly. Victor reached for the second envelope, held it out. She opened it. Read, a scholarship, Sophie's name at the top. Her future secured, her dream protected. Sophie looked up slowly.
This is for me? Yes.
Why? Victor looked at her. Because one day you're going to build something that matters. Sophie didn't speak. She stood up, walked around the desk, and hugged him. Just like that, no hesitation, no permission. Victor froze for a second. Then his hand lifted, rested gently on her back. Thank you, she whispered. Victor closed his eyes briefly. Thank you, he replied. And this time, he meant something very different. They moved her on a quiet morning. No rush, no noise, just careful steps. Maya stood on one side of the bed, the nurse on the other, their voices low, steady, guiding every movement. It's all right, Mama, Maya whispered.
We're just going somewhere new.
Grace blinked slowly. Her eyes drifted across the room she had known for years. The small walls, the narrow window, the air filled with familiar silence. Then back to Maya. Are you coming with me? She asked softly. Maya's hand tightened gently around hers. I'm right here. They lifted her carefully, inch by inch, no sudden movement.
No surprise.
Victor stood in the doorway, not close, not in the way, just there, watching. Present, the car ride was slow, every turn gentle, every stop measured. Maya never let go of her mother's hand, not once. Victor followed behind in the second car, not leading, not controlling, just following. When they arrived, the house stood quiet under the morning light. Fresh paint, clean lines, simple. Right, the front door opened, the air inside was new, but warm, prepared. Grace was carried inside slowly, step by step, room by room, until they reached the bedroom. Her room, the bed was already made. Soft, supportive, safe. The window stood open slightly, letting in the light. Maya helped her settle down, adjusted the pillows, smoothed the blanket. The same movements, the same care, just in a different place. Grace's eyes moved slowly around the room, taking it in, the walls, the light, the quiet, then the window. Beyond it, the garden, tomato plants lined in neat rows, pepper plants resting along the wall, and in the corner a small lemon tree, young but alive. Grace stared at it. For a long time, no one spoke, no one moved. Then her lips parted slightly. It looks like home, she said. Clear, certain, present. Maya froze. Her hand rose to her mouth. Her breath caught. Then slowly, it is, Mama, she whispered. It is. Victor stood near the doorway. Still, he watched the moment settle. Didn't interrupt it, didn't claim it. Just let it exist. Later, when the room grew quiet again, Maya stepped outside. The garden stretched in front of her. Simple, real. She walked slowly along the soil. Her fingers brushed the leaves of the tomato plants. Light, careful. Then she stopped at the lemon tree, small, fragile, but rooted, alive. Victor stepped out behind her.
Didn't come too close.
You remembered, she said softly. Victor looked at the tree. She talked about it, he replied. A pause. I listened. Maya turned slightly toward him, her eyes steady, but different now. Open. Thank you, she said, 2 words. Simple, but full. Victor nodded once. Nothing more. The children ran past them then. Eli chasing something invisible. Laughing. Loud. Free. Sophie walked slower, her notebook already open, sketching the house from the outside. Measuring it with her eyes. Victor watched her, then looked back at the house. Not large, not impressive, no glass, no steel, but complete. Inside, Grace rested. Maya moved between rooms. The children filled the space with sound. And for the first time in a long time, Victor felt something unfamiliar. Not control, not success. Something quieter, something deeper. A sense that something had been built, not bought, not designed. Built, and this time it wasn't empty. Christmas morning arrived quietly. Soft light, cold air outside, warmth inside. Victor stood in front of the small house, a paper bag in his hand. Fruit, a jar of honey tied with a simple ribbon. Nothing expensive, nothing unnecessary, just enough. Before he could knock, the door opened. Eli stood there, already smiling. I saw you from the window, he said, grabbing Victor's sleeve and pulling him inside. No hesitation, no distance. Just welcome. Victor stepped in. The air hit him first, warm, Rich, spices, cooking, something deep and familiar that he couldn't name but felt. He paused for a moment in the doorway, just breathing, listening. Voices filled the house, laughter, movement, life. Mr. Hale. Sophie appeared from the kitchen, flour dusted across her hands and the front of her oversized apron. I'm making something, she announced quickly.
You can't come in yet.
Victor almost smiled. I wouldn't dream of it, he said. She nodded seriously, then disappeared again. From the back room came another sound. Grace's voice, clear, bright.
A good day.
A very good day. Victor set the bag down on the small table near the door. He didn't move further inside yet. He just stood there, taking it in. Maya's humming drifted softly from the kitchen. That same low, quiet sound, almost like breathing. Eli ran past him again, explaining something about his toy car to no one in particular. Sophie called out that whatever she was making would be ready in 12 minutes. A radio played faintly somewhere in the background. Soft music, familiar. Victor closed his eyes for a second. Just a second, then opened them again and stepped forward. Not as a guest, not as an employer, just as someone who had arrived. Maya looked up when he entered the kitchen doorway. She didn't stop moving, didn't pause her work, but her eyes met his for a brief moment, and something passed between them. Simple, understood. You came, she said quietly. I said I would. She nodded once, then returned to the stove. Victor stepped back into the living room. Grace sat in her chair near the window, wrapped in a blanket, the morning light resting gently across her face. She looked up when she saw him, and this time there was no hesitation. Victor, she said, his name, clear, present. He walked toward her slowly.
Good morning.
She smiled. You came for Christmas?
Yes.
She studied him for a moment. You look less serious today. Victor let out a quiet breath. Working on that, he said again. She reached for his hand. Her grip light, but certain. Stay, she said. He didn't hesitate. I will. Time moved differently in that house. Slower, fuller. They ate together, simple food, warm, shared. Eli talked without stopping. Sophie explained every detail of what she had cooked, her voice precise and careful. Maya moved between them, never still for long, but always present. Grace listened, smiling, sometimes speaking, sometimes just watching. Victor sat among them, not above, not apart, with them. He listened. He answered. He stayed, and somewhere between the laughter and the quiet moments, something settled deep inside him. Not a thought, not a decision, a feeling. He looked around the room, at the worn chairs, at the small table, at the people sitting around it. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Victor Hale felt it. Not success, not control, something else. Belonging, quiet, real. He didn't speak it, didn't need to. He just sat there and stayed. He had built hundreds of buildings, glass towers that touched the sky, bridges that carried thousands of cars every day, hospitals, offices, entire streets shaped by his decisions. Victor Hale had spent his life creating things that lasted, things people could see, things people could measure. But standing in that small house, he understood something he had never understood before. The most important things could not be built that way. They had no blueprint, no budget, no grand opening. They were quieter than that, slower, invisible at first. And yet, they were the only things that truly lasted. Victor stood near the window, watching the garden. The tomato plants had grown. The pepper plants stood steady along the wall. And the lemon tree, stronger now, its leaves brighter, alive. He stepped outside. The air was cool, clean. He walked slowly across the small path, stopped in front of the tree, reached out. His fingers brushed a leaf, light, careful. Behind him, the door opened. Maya stepped out quietly. She didn't speak right away. She stood beside him, close, but not too close. They both looked at the tree.
It's growing,
she said softly. Victor nodded. It just needed the right place. A pause. Maya turned slightly toward him. So did you. The words were simple, but they stayed. Victor didn't answer immediately. He kept looking at the tree, thinking. Then finally, he said quietly. Silence settled again. Comfortable now. Easy. From inside the house, voices drifted out. Eli laughing. Sophie asking questions about something she was drawing. Grace calling Maya's name. Soft, warm, alive. Victor closed his eyes for a moment, just a moment, then opened them again. I used to think, he began. Maya waited. That success meant building something big. A pause, something people could admire. He looked down at his hands. I thought that was enough. Maya didn't interrupt. He looked back up, but it wasn't. Simple, clear. It's not the size, he continued. It's who's inside. Another pause. And whether you stay. Maya nodded slowly. Yes, she said. That's the part most people miss. Victor let out a quiet breath. I missed it for a long time. Maya studied him for a moment, then said gently, you didn't miss it. A pause. You just hadn't seen it yet. Victor looked at her, really looked, then nodded once. From inside, Sophie's voice rose again.
Mr. Hale.
Victor turned slightly. She stood in the doorway, her notebook in her hands. I finished something, she said. He walked toward her, took the notebook, opened it. A building. Different from the others, wider, more open. People drawn in front of it, small figures, but present. He looked at her. What is this? She smiled. It's a place where everyone can come, she said. No one is left outside. Victor closed the notebook gently. I like it, he said. Sophie nodded, satisfied, then ran back inside. Victor stood there for a moment longer, then followed. Into the house, into the noise, into the life he had spent so many years avoiding. And this time, he didn't stand at the edge. He stepped in, fully, present. Victor Hale had built a life once, tall, impressive, empty. Now he was building something else, something quieter, something real. A habit of showing up, of staying, of listening, of being there when it mattered. No contracts, no deadlines, no applause, just presence. And that was the most important thing he would ever build. If this story stayed with you, if it made you think of someone you should call or visit or simply sit with for a while, do it. Because sometimes the people who change your life are the ones who were there all along.